So you had mentioned how once 9/11 happened, your career pretty much took a 180.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was a crazy day, but getting past that, the first couple of weeks after the 9/11 attacks, all agents are working a 12-hour shift, either like 7 in the morning to 7 at night or 7 at night to 7 in the morning. And and calls are coming in from the public and from getting communications from intelligence agencies. Because you don't know when, we thought the next wave of attacks was going to happen on September 12th. I mean, we didn't know if we were at war as a nation, and if so, who were we at war with? And so you're knocking on a lot of people's doors, and just talking to people, kind of building up an intelligence base. And I guess I had done a good job during that window of time, because one day as things are kind of calmed down, I go back to my bank fraud squad. I get a call, hey, we need you to come into the boss's office. The boss is the special agent in charge, the number one guy in Chicago. And so I get brought in, and it's like, and when there's like 5 other agents there. There's like me, and I was at the time again, I'm not saying I was the best agent, but I had the best statistical accomplishments in Chicago for making the most number of cases.
Nice.
Okay? I want to be clear, though. There's other agents who are working bigger, better cases, but I was a volume guy. And so I was like the financial guy. And then there was another guy who was an organized crime agent who was very successful in that career. There was another guy who was he was like a military intelligence background guy and like kind of like stuff like that. And there was a violent crime guy who was doing kind of like RICO cases on like on gangs and stuff like that. And so basically they took a bunch, like 5 agents from the different disciplines and the different squads, and we all sort of knew each other because these are the guys you see around the office, but I didn't know these guys real well. And they gathered us together and said, we want to form a new squad, a new team with you 5 guys. And here's you have one case and one mission, and you're going to work as a team. The mission is to cut off the blood money going to Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. The specific mission, though, here in Chicago is we got 2 charities out in Bridgeview that were and these charities are taking money from good Muslims, telling them that they're going to funnel this money to the poor and needy of the Muslim world. And unlike Catholic kids, the Muslims actually do tithe, and they give like 10% of their income to the poor.
Oh, wow. They take that seriously.
They call it zakat, yeah, right? The Catholics just pretend they're going to do that. But the Muslims actually do it. And so these charities are bringing in a ton of money from good Muslims, and instead of funneling that money to the poor and needy, they were going to Islamic fighting groups, including Al-Qaeda. And so that was the theory of the case. Then it was now we need you guys to prove it in a way that you can prove it in court. So we worked this case for 3 to 4 years. We dismantled these charities. We took their money. We kind of publicly explained to the Muslims that we don't see you as bad people who are supporting terrorism. We see you as victims of a fraud, right? Because if I'm telling you that I'm going to give this money to a poor kid, then I'm using that money for hand warmers for the trigger pullers in Chechnya, then I'm defrauding you. And so we tried to get that message across, and I think we probably failed doing that because the Muslims were pretty pissed at us for closing down their charities.
For sure.
But then we were able to deport a lot of the people that we couldn't prove, and then throw in prison some of the leaders that we were able to establish beyond a reasonable doubt were doing that. And so that sort of was kind of this 5 year, 5 years, several, 3-4 year time out from my career as a financial crimes investigator. But even then, I was the financial guy on the team.
Yep.
So
that had to have been a super exciting period for you. Like
it was. I mean,
it sounds like that was closer to where you wanted to be when you thought of being an FBI agent.
Maybe.
Yeah?
I mean, again, the counterterrorism work's sort of funny because we were trying to prove something that happened in the past. It was more what I was used to. But a lot of the counterterrorism work that they're doing is trying to prevent the next terrorist attack before it happens, right? It's almost like that movie Minority Report. And so you end up like talking to a lot of people that this guy's acting weird. He's meeting with a bunch of guys. He's, maybe buying, a lot of fertilizer when he's not a farmer, and just things like that. And then you go talk to them. So those guys, I think, the counterterrorism agents, they're destroying and breaking up and disrupting terrorist plots every day, and they don't even know it. Just by like talking to somebody, they're like, well, let's scatter. And but you don't have this historical crime that you're investigating, and that's the model of investigations that I've always done better at. I'm not the guy that you want to like kind of wire up against the drug kingpin and stuff like that. I want to investigate crimes that have happened in the past.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it sounds really difficult to pursue terror because it's like you have to find the ingredients of it. Like you have to be like, okay, well, look, they're about to do this. That seems borderline impossible.
It's such an impossible mission because, I mean, again, investigating a terrorist attack is one thing, but preventing the next terrorist attack without violating people's rights, it's a fine line. I mean, I had to do it for a few years, and I don't think I was necessarily great at it, honestly, because I was always just sort of, I don't know. Is this guy going to do something bad? I don't know. I mean, every day you drove by the Sears Tower and looked at it and it's still standing. You're like, well, I guess I did a job well done.
Yep.
It's difficult to figure out what your wins are because, I mean, eventually you go out and you talk to the subject of the investigation, you knock on their door and give them a very kind of tough interview about, are you seeking to harm the U.S. in any way? And they're always going to deny it. And hopefully you put the fear of God into them.
A bit off topic. How do you feel that they're trying to call it the Willis Tower now?
It's always annoyed me.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
But when I left, it was Sears Tower, and then somewhere since then it became Willis Tower. It'll always be the Sears Tower.
It is Sears Tower.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
I think it's Sears Tower forever.
Do the locals still call it that?
For sure.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know a single person that I know from back home or my family that calls it Willis Tower.
That's good.
But we might be a few years away from that. These kids now, it doesn't have Sears on there anymore. It's Willis now.
Yeah, soon it'll be the Gulf of America too.
Oh God, dude, stop changing all the shit, dude. Everything's fine, dude. Gulf of Mexico, Sears Tower,
Comiskey
we're
Park.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Leave it be. Leave it be. So, outside of those charities that you pursued, are there any other cases that you investigated while you were on the terror squad that really stood out to you?
Let me think. In my counterterrorism time, I think that was like my only counterterrorism case that I was focused on. When I got to Jacksonville, we did a lot of. I did a bunch of counterterrorism cases that were trying to prevent that next terrorist. Actually, no, there was one in Chicago that was kind of fun. I could tell you about. So I can't get into too many specifics because of how we knew. There was a guy that we were concerned about, okay, living in a apartment building in the Chicago suburbs, that he was going to do something bad, an attack of some kind. The intel wasn't great, but it was enough to look into him. And so I'm looking into this guy, trying to assess, is he up to no good? And so one thing we like to do sometimes at the FBI is what we call a trash cover. And that's where we actually go to your home and we steal the trash on garbage day and bring it home and go through
I've heard about this.
And bring
this
it
is
and
a real
go through
thing?
it, go through it, looking to see who your bills are and stuff like that. So I did a lot of trash covers. It's disgusting work because half the time it's filled with diaper and curries.
Sounds horrible, yeah.
Problem is this guy, this potential terrorist that we were looking into, he lived in a big apartment building where everyone just brought their garbage and threw it into a dumpster.
Oh, that's what we do here.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't do a trash cover in this building for you. I mean, you drive yourself crazy, like, in the middle of the night, kind of going through bag after bag after bag and trying to find something with your name on it. So, but I really wanted to do a trash cover on this guy because I thought it would give a little more clarity into what he's up to, because we were really concerned about what he's up to. We didn't have enough probable cause to do a search warrant, and I didn't want to interview the guy just then. And so, you'll appreciate this. You're a former Chicago guy. Remember the blue bags?
Yes.
Okay. The blue bag, explain what the blue bags were.
I want you to explain it for the viewer.
Okay. So when Chicago implemented their recycling system for the city, you would basically throw your recyclables in a blue trash bag as opposed to a black or a white one. And you tie that up, and allegedly that blue bag would make its way to a recycling center with the
alleged is a key
with the
word.
Newspaper or aluminum. You and I know that's horseshit. But the suburbs never bought into this. The suburbs never did the blue bags, at least not this guy's suburb. And so what I did was, do you remember, gosh, you're so young. Do you remember Peapod? Was Peapod still a thing in Chicago?
No.
Peapod was a very, very early internet grocery delivery service.
That sounds I might remember it from when I was like a kid.
Yeah, maybe.
When I was
it was revolutionary. The idea you would go grocery shopping on the internet, early days of the internet, and then the Peapod truck would arrive and like bring your shit up to your apartment, which is great.
I'm pretty sure I do remember this, but like I was young.
Right. So I dressed up like a UPS guy, created a fake Peapod letterhead and a fake Peapod package, and told this guy, let's say his name was Saeed, and Saeed put his name in everything and made it look like an official thing. I said, hey, Peapod is now in your area. We would love for you to use Peapod as a token of our appreciation. Here is a free box of trash bags from Peapod. And I got some blue trash bags from Home Depot from Chicago, bright blue. Put them in there, wrapped it up, deliver it to his house, dressed as a UPS guy. His family takes it, and then takes it. A couple weeks later, I go back, look in the dumpster. What am I looking for? Bright blue trash bags. There was no blue bag system in his suburb, so I was taking the blue trash bags from the dumpster, and then I opened them, and we've got lots of evidence that we're able to deport him with.
Listen, guys, sorry for the little cut right there. Our sign almost fell and killed everybody. So We had to jump in. We had to jump in. I can't let Tom get hurt.
Not all heroes wear capes. Thanks for saving us.
That's right. That's right. Today was my heroic moment. So one of the things that you said earlier that really was interesting to me, it caught my attention, and also ties into stuff I want to talk about later, but might as well bring it up now. When we were talking about, there was an earlier case, I believe it was like when you were on the terror squad, you had made a very brief comment where you're like, you had caught yourself. You're like, I probably shouldn't say that because of how we like surveilled him or something along those lines, like how we found him. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I don't remember what it said.
I think it was, you were talking about someone like that you had suspected as a terrorist, and you had said something earlier along the lines, we're so far in a conversation, I can't even remember how long ago it was. But you had said something along the lines of like, you were about to say, and you're like, oh, like, I can't say much because of like how we found him.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let me speak broadly because I don't want to talk about any one individual
Of course.
case.
Yeah.
FBI national security cases can arise from any number of things. They can arise, perhaps there's a wiretap on this guy where we learn about someone else and there's a spin-off investigation. Maybe there's an informant. Maybe there's someone who got in trouble criminally. Or maybe we're receiving information from an intelligence agency in the U.S. intelligence community, CIA, NSA, people like that, who don't want their fingerprints on a case that may one day be criminal. And so we're able to take that information from the intelligence services, thanks to the Patriot Act, which now allows them to talk to us, and then utilize that in to be the genesis of a FBI investigation that may end up being criminal. And so what you can't do, though, is talk about if you're getting the information from a classified source, what that classified source told you.
Interesting. And for those who aren't aware, what is the Patriot Act?
The Patriot Act was a very controversial law that went into place after the 9/11 attacks in 2001. That kind of it did lots of things, some of which were very controversial, some of which should not have been controversial. The thing that impacted agents on a day-to-day basis that day is it tore down the wall between the national security side of the FBI and the criminal side of the FBI.
Interesting.
The old days, if I had a criminal investigation and that subject of that criminal investigation was intercepted on a national security wiretap, and maybe they're admitting to all sorts of stuff involving their crime, they couldn't tell me because there was this wall between us, and nothing from the national security side could come over to the criminal side. The Patriot Act tore that wall down and allowed us to actually win the war on terror as a result of cooperating between the intelligence community and the criminal agents.
Pre-Patriot Act, why was it that you couldn't share that information?
I think it was a misunderstanding. I think there was some lawyers at the very beginning in the early days of the FISA courts and things like that who made a determination that it would somehow be dirty pool for us to be using national security assets to kind of sweeten criminal investigations. I think the fear was that criminal investigators would begin using the national security stuff as an investigative tool. And that really wasn't what was happening. But eventually, bottom line is these intelligence services are just hoovering up information, right? There's a vacuum of intel, and sometimes they're going to come upon criminal intel that criminal FBI agents investigating crimes like myself wanted to know about.
So are there cases, I mean, in theory, this is what I'm imagining, there's cases where you're investigating a criminal and maybe you realize this person is a national security threat and you pass them on up?
Absolutely.
How frequently would that happen?
Not too often. I mean, honestly, not too often. There were a couple cases that I had which was sort of veered in that direction. You know, if you're looking at a Russian mobster, you know, and maybe he's in touch with some people at the embassy and you want to make sure the national security guys know that.
And when I think national security threat, what comes to my mind is a terror attack.
Yeah, think of it as there's two different things that the FBI does in the national security space. One is, we talked about it extensively, preventing next terrorist attack, investigating terrorist attacks. But there's a whole other side of the national security side of the FBI, the counterintelligence side. And it's very simply, they're the ones who monitor and catch foreign spies operating inside the U.S.
Oh, that's an interesting game.
So, like, you know, let's call it what it is. We're talking Russians, we're talking North Koreans, we're talking Chinese, the Cubans to an extent. You know, have intelligence officers here gathering intel in the U.S. And so the FBI's job is to identify who those people are And if you catch them and throw them out, that's one thing. But the problem is they're just going to be backfilled by someone else. And so maybe it makes sense to monitor their activities. Find out, what are they doing? Who are they tasking? Are they developing informants inside our country in the U.S. military who are now selling secrets to this intelligence officer that we've identified? And so those type of cases are very important, and it's a thinking man's game.
When you identify a foreign intelligence officer, how do you handle that? I mean, you obviously can't go take that guy to jail.
Right. The way if the person's going to be expelled, it's called being PNG'd, where you're persona non grata in that country, where we basically, we're not arresting that person because quite often they have diplomatic immunity because they're a cultural attaché from the embassy or something like that. And so if they're causing so much trouble and we're unable to keep touch of them, we can PNG them, send them back home. And what happens is they just the country that we send it just sends one of our guys back and PNG.
It's just a fair trade.
Yeah. So again, oftentimes the smarter move would be to monitor their activities.
I was just about to ask that. You know, it's probably smarter for you to hold on to those people and just keep watching. You know,
there's a good argument for that.
For sure.